No. Just cute joke and this is now. Yeah. Let me just 1 second. What we've done today is again asked a structural. You understand the structure? We asked the question. We reinforced the question, but fundamentally, I want you to understand something. I'm not just asking the question here because I just want to ask a kasha. Stamazoi. You have to remember we spoke about it last time. You know, given our system, it doesn't fit in. It makes no sense. Because what we're trying to do is build up a complete system. And true chokhmah, no matter what it is, in the hashkafa, means to gradually develop a set of ideas and to understand the consequences of these ideas and how they relate. And as we begin to build, we begin to see new ideas, how they relate to these old ideas. And if they don't relate, then we must do something to the system in some way. Because we're building a binyan here. This is like let's declare, the function of the Yishum is not just to say a piece of Torah or to give a kash here or a vort here and a sedul. This is not hashkafa. We're trying to understand the mechanism called the hashkafa photos. And basically, at least in terms of an overview at this point. And this is consistent with that kind of thing. Okay. Obviously, there's something fundamentally wrong here. In understanding. Now, we'll go a little backwards here. Obviously, Yemos Mashiach, is that part of Olam Haba or Olam Hazeh? Olam Hazeh. So obviously, Yemos Mashiach must have in it, if it's part of this, it must have in it as objective the tikkun of Na'am Tzufa. It must have it. Right? That's we're going backwards. We're going backwards now. That's what you do. When you hit a wall, begin to go back. Well, therefore, what can we assume the other way? You see what I'm saying? It must have the tikkun Na'am Tzufa. The tikkun Na'am Tzufa needs a certain amount of hester. Right? Bechira. Now, when we observe it in Yemos Mashiach, we see that the hester is open. Is there a yitzhak in Yemos Mashiach? Yes. But it's very minute, which means that the hester is very minute. So, the question is not to understand what is it doing in Olam Hazeh. The question is to understand why is it that the level of tikkun in Yemos Mashiach requires such little hester. That's what it is. It's obviously whatever's required, the tikkun, you see, is so small that the hester is very small.
But likes for quality or quality.
That's the question, you see. Okay. That's what we're going to try and see. That's obviously where the answer lies. You see me? The answer lies, obviously there's a tikkun of Na'am Tzufa. That's it. You understand what I mean, the tikkun of Na'am Tzufa? Tikkun means that the function of Yemos Mashiach is to also to allow man to be koina, to kinyan Olam Haba, not through chesed, but through schos, through din. That's the tikkun of Na'am Tzufa. That's the phrase that we use. So the function of Yemos Mashiach is to conform to the theme of the tikkun of Na'am Tzufa, number one, of Yemos Mashiach. Except that it conforms to it in a very extremely minute fashion. You see, the shayla is why. Not why, but how could such a minute fashion happen after such an incredible large fashion? You see, that's the question here. So, in order to understand this, let us go back to Adam Rishon.
We have to satisfy the need of tikkun.
Yeah. Okay. Let us go back to Adam Rishon. Now, what we said before, we asked another kasha once. The fundamental question we asked is this: it is very clear to us that if Adam Rishon had not done the chet, right, what would have happened? He would have gone to Olam Haba, right? He would have been. What would have happened to Mashiach? What would happen to Mashiach? Period.
He was Mashiach.
So you all remember when I say that the answer is he would have been Mashiach. Now we're going to review a little bit and then take it. What does it mean he would have been Mashiach? What does that mean? What it means is that Mashiach. What does Mashiach mean? What does that Mashiach mean? Mashiach means nothing more than the Bria in a state of tikkun. That's what it means. When Olam Haba is Mashiach, that's what Mashiach means. Mashiach means Olam Haba. It's funny, it's a strange conception. Mashiach is not a person, he's not an individual, exclusively, although he isn't it, but that's not what it really means. Its essence, it is not an individual, it is not a period of time. It is essentially an objective. And Mashiach is nothing more than the objective that the world establishes a total state of tikkun, or the tikkun nam sufa. Or in other words, the Indian Mashiach is nothing more than the hatava being realized. You see. Now, how was that hatava realized? Fundamentally, what we said was, if Adam had not done the chet, he would have brought down Oris, right? More specifically, what we mean, he would have brought down very powerful Oris, which is like a new level of neshama. And that neshama, it's a new type of neshama that would have come down, and that would have been the all. He would have had many Oris, but once he would have had many Oris, at the end of all the Oris he would have had, it would have come down a new neshama that would have connected into his neshama, and that would have been charged up his neshama to an incredibly powerful degree, so that he could then be zircha to our progress on the level of Olam Haba. That neshama is called the Yechida.
The panemius of his neshama.
Yeah, that's called that neshama, which is the last piece that comes down, is called the Yechida. Okay? It's a neshama essentially, but there's the neshama that corresponds to a substance level higher than Atzilas. Because that's what Olam Haba. Olam Haba is the level of Zichur higher than Atzilas. We understand this? There's a bunch of Londonim here already. Okay. That neshama called Yechida is called the Melech HaMashiach. You see, that's what it is. Yechida is called the Melech HaMashiach. What is Yechida? Yechida is a neshama that gives a person capacity to see from one end of the world to the other. Essentially. To be able to masi Yechuda on the level of Olam, of Olam Haba on a very high madriga. Fine. If he had done the chet, if he had not done the chet, he would have been Mashiach, and that would have been it.
And it can come down only to a descendant of David.
Well, no, not yet. What happened with Adam Rishon? What Adam Rishon did was the following. He did the chet. So therefore, he was poigim the bria. He not only did he fail to be masakin or mazach the bria, but he put a kilkel into the bria through the zoyama. By the avuvia, by allowing the avuvia to happen, the tikboris savah to happen through the avuvia, he was makalkel the bria. So it means that in order to achieve the level of tikkun and namatsufa, we have to go two steps. We got to get rid of the tumah, the zoyama, take that out of the bria, number one, and number two, we got to be bringing her over down to be mazach the bria or be mekadosh it to this level. So we need a level of tahara and then a level of kedusha, of kiddush. Okay? We have that? Okay. That's what it means, the two Mashiachim. Fundamentally, the concept of Mashiach lies in the tikkun of the bria. But now that the tikkun of the bria requires two separate steps, right? It means that the concept of Mashiach is divided into two different processes. Okay? Now what we said was, the original process, which is to go from step 2 to step 3, the higher process of Zichur, Kedusha, right, is called Mashiach ben David. Forget about, that's the name of the process. Forget about it. It doesn't refer to an individual. It's called the David, or you want to call it what? It's called the David Mashiachas. The Mashiachas which has shaykh to David. The part of the process which has to go from the bottom rung, which is the entire debris of the Zoyama, to the minus one to zero, is called the Yosef Dika Mashiach, or the Mashiach ben Yosef. Why is it called Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef? Because those two processes, even though these two processes have to go on in every generation, you see, but those two processes did not become personified as an individual until Yehuda and Yosef, the sons of Yaakov. When Yaakov had two sons, and he had two sons, Yosef and Yehuda, those two sons personified, or the koyach came out in both separately, it was individuated or divided into those people, and from then, every person who was born from Yehuda had the koyach, you see, or the central koyach to be mezachich the bria, and the thing Yosef had the central koyach to be metayar the bria.
Everybody just one.
No, just those two. Those are the central ones. Their zera had the central koyach.
They themselves as well.
What?
They themselves.
Just certain of the.
They themselves as well.
No,
they themselves were not.
No, they didn't have the koyach. They had the koyach to establish the thing in the bria.
Why not?
They were the overs. They were the shroshim to that. But they did not. They could not have been Mashiachim themselves. Well, they were not. They could not have. That's what they were the opposite thing. But I don't want to go into that thing. I want to just go into a certain vibe. Now, I want to explain a very fundamental thing here. Okay, very important thing. How is it done? How is this done? Well, let's look at more detail. What does it mean? The Mashiach ben David process and Mashiach ben Yosef process. What does it mean? More fundamental in terms of actual activity. The actual activity is the following. Mashiach ben David process means to do a mitzvah, right? What happens when you do a mitzvah? You bring down ore, right? That's called ha'orah, right? So it's essentially to bring down new oras, to be mechazik, the neshama, right? That's the Mashiach ben Davidic process. How is that done? Through bechira, right? You go into the world, you got a ma'aseh bechira between what? Between Tov and Ra, right? You look at the two, Tov. You choose Tov, right? Suddenly, your neshama becomes more powerful as a result of the oil that you're kind of, the ruchnis you're kind of because of the mitzvah. Okay? That's the process. That's the process of Adam Rishon Koydem Achet. If he wouldn't have, that's what would happen. What's the Yesivdika process? It's a different process. What is it? It's similar but different. The process is the following. It's to do a mitzvah also, because of the Vad Bechira, but to do a mitzvah in a klipa, in a very difficult situation, in much harder circumstances. What do you mean much harder? Where the circumstance has an avuvi in it. You know what I mean? When it's tikburis hara, when it's much more difficult.
When the bad looks much better than the good.
When the bad looks much better than the good. Which requires a much more powerful level of mysterious nefesh. You see?
Well, because now you have to go from the worst to the...
So if you can manifest the bechira in a klipa, then the soyim is bigger. But how is it bigger? It's bigger. You can't understand how it's bigger. You see, that's because it's a quality. It's not bigger. It's not bigger. It's not that it's so big that the Yitzhahor is bigger. In that sense, the Nesoyan is bigger because of the consequence. The Gboras Hara. That's why he's bigger. He's not bigger mitzad his own koiches. He's bigger mitzad the koiches you gave him. Do you understand? That's the difference. You see, it's not the Yitzhahor had a certain koich of Adam Rishon before the Chet, and he had a certain power. He had 100 pounds of energy, if you want to call it that, right? The Chet of Adam Rishon gave him 200 pounds of energy. You see? Now what it was is the Nesoyan of Adam before the Chet was also 100 pounds. If he would have done what he would have done, he would have been masakin, being brought down this earth and masakin the Bria for the 100 pounds, you see. But since he did the Chet, he's got to do the same thing now against 200 pounds. You see? So the extra 100 pounds is not the original koach of the Yetzirah. Really. It's the koach of the expansion of the Sipur Achla, which means it's an Nesoyan against the Klipa as well as the Tum itself. It's the Avuvya, you see. That's it. Now, if he can sustain that and withstand that, what happens is, if he sustains that, then he does two things. That in one shot, he can go on both levels.
Yes, proportionately, you get much better, much more spark.
If he sustains it powerfully well, then he could be Mataya. He could remove, mamash, what he does is actually rip away the avuvya. He rips it away. He tears it out of the thing that's part of his neshama. You see what I'm saying? He's Matay's neshama. And if he withstands it. What's that? Well, if he withstands the klipa itself, then he has the power to remove the klipa which is dovikim, the koyach of the avuvya. You understand what I'm saying? If he continues to withstand it, as the klipa begins to break down, you see, then he goes further to the next rung. You know what I mean? Which is the original level of ha'ora, which is a Davidika process. You understand what I'm saying? These are the two avoidance now. In other words, what happens is because of the Chet of Adam Rishon, there were two types of avoidance in the Bria. There's the avoider of the Nesoyan against the Klipa, and there's the avoider of the Nesoyan simply against the Yetzirah.
Was more personified and Lavan was more personified as sin.
No, not necessarily. I don't want to go into that, Al. You understand what I'm saying?
Where do you still find some that are Mashiach and David type of?
There are some, because so where do you find, for example, where do you find this? For example, how can you hold your question and make sure to ask it, okay?
In places that already people did the Yosef did the part.
For example, when two people are born in the world, right? One person is born in a situation, right, where his parents are not from, or let's say they are from, but he's born in a situation and he has tremendous Yetzirah, for example, or he has fantastic opportunities, you know? He's a fantastic opportunity to do chatoim, you know what I mean? And it weighs down with him very powerfully. You see, the other guy is born in a situation where his fathers are achieving this and that, or his Yitzhahs are not that big, or it's much easier for him to do mitzvahs. You see what I'm saying? So that, or he's in a situation where he's in a situation of much greater kedusha. You see, he's born, let's say, in a situation where there's a lot of, there's a lot of ruchni, there's a lot of kedusha b'chlal. Rebbeishim, or whatever the story is, or not only, he's born in a way where he can go to yeshiva and he sits and learns and he's matzliach well, and he's in dalam shanoch, and he has mitzvahs and so on and so forth. But for example, he's not a guy that has to go out in the world, for example, Example, let's say the guy went to Shiva and then he was given 10 years cash to sit and learn. And then he's sitting over. That's a Dovidic process. Then the other guy who can't make a panos and he's got to go out and work in the diamond district every day. He's forced to go in the diamond district and he's forced to be a Florid over there. You see the difference?
So both of these processes are existing now.
Exactly, yeah, everything right. But one is more of a Yosef process and then it's more of a Dovidic process. You see what I'm saying? So this obviously one is a process where the guy's got a battle, he's got to be much nefesh through much more powerful tumah, klippus, and the other one is much lighter. That's a Dovidic process. You see what I'm saying? Now why do they have these two processes? We won't go into that. That's not what's critical here. You know what I mean? But the point is that this is what it is. When the Buddhism said to Adam Rishon B'zeh Lechem, the Buddhism said, you will now have to do the same thing you have to B'zeh, you throw it out of the ground, you have to work now. You're much more subject to the Yisor of Gaiva and to many other things. Your connection with the ground and with many things and with everything that relates to the world. Through development, and when we said the developmental part, you have deteriorative processes now inside yourself. It's much harder, this and that. When you're older, there are many new things that have come in. You see, that are much more difficult. But this is the result of the expansion of the Sitla. Now you have to be Oimim B'Nesoyim, you see, through the Klippus, through the Sibura Salah. And by being Oimim B'Nesoyim, you'll be Mataya that. And if you keep on doing it and you break it down, you see what I'm saying? You begin to get into the level of Zichuk itself. You see what I'm saying?
The Sibura was increasing in time, or it came immediately after?
It came immediately after the effect.
It hasn't been increasing since.
It has, obviously, from that time. No, but every time since that time, people are doing Chatoim, it gets bigger and bigger. Now we'll get into it. Does everyone understand what it is? Also, now where do you see this? You see this in Yosef and Yehuda. You see, Yosef was a tzaddik. Why is Yosef the Chiddush be'echav? Why is he the biggest of the brothers? Why? What was the Chiddush of Yosef?
He was put into a compromising situation.
Where was Yosef a tzaddik?
First place.
He was in
the Shire
in the Klippa of Mitzrayim, the biggest Klippa alone.
9 out of
Where was Yehuda? He was sitting in the base of Medish of Yaakov. You see what I'm saying? Yosef was the one who established that koyach. It was established before, but established that koyach is personified now in a person and other things. But that koyach of remaining a tzaddik, Yosef may be tzadkai, you see, was established there. Yehuda was different. You see.
Why did you need it? Why not do Mishim Alevi?
What? Why Yosef and Yehuda?
No, why? Yosef is the Bechar. Yosef is the Bechar from Rachel, and he's. Why not the Bechar of Leah?
Why not? Why is not the Bechar? Why Yehuda? Why the fourth son?
I mean,
why we call Mashiach ben David?
We explained once, yeah, because the very simple Yehuda sold Yosef, was one of the main people who sold him. So he was Nenash. His onish was that he lost, even though he is now the thing, he lost a certain Ikakoyach, so it's not called Mashiach ben David, it's called Mashiach Yehuda, Mashiach ben David. But it should have been called Mashiach ben Yehuda.
So why did he kill David? Why didn't somebody before that? Why?
He answered by a helicopter.
No, not this.
Not this thing.
Yeah. Not this. No.
Why happened before? How could it have been by Moshe Rabbeinu before?
You're missing that from Lloyd.
From Lloyd, yeah. But what I'm saying is, there are many questions. There are thousands of questions you can begin to ask through the whole Chumash. You see, but you know why? Because suddenly you're smart. You realize, wait a minute. No, you become smarter. No, what does that mean? It means that. But what does it mean? I'm not saying that only in terms of joke. I'm not being facetious here. What I've said is a very critical thing. I've said that the whole avoid of the Bria now is in two forms, which means that process is evident from the time of Adam Rishon down to the end. You see what I'm saying? That's why. So it may be fascinating to wait a minute. If these are the two central spokes now, in which the avoida of the Bria rests on these two things, on what's called the Trei Mashiachim or the Shnei Mashiachim, meaning that these are processes, and these fundamental things, that the people of the Bria come through these two processes. What is the development or the progressive evolution of these processes from the beginning, Shijime Braces, to the end? That is the automatic question that you must ask. You see. And that is a new objective.
I don't understand the question. What is the question? Automatic. Yeah, I don't. It's not so automatic.
No, if you understand that the avoid or the tika, the avoid of the process, the main avoid.
There's two different types of people.
Two processes. So therefore, we want to understand how these processes will manifest in history, throughout time, in every generation.
You want to know who was it?
Not only who was it, but how was it done? Which was the Ika? Which was the Tofel? What was
After the head,
each person was different. It was not for each person different.
Yes, but it also evolved in different ways. But obviously we see that the key way to understand, what we see now is that I've given you now, what I've told you now is a very fundamental principle. I've shown you the two central themes, the central theme of the Bria, which is Tikkun Lamed Tufot, and the two central themes that emerge from that, which is the Tar of the Bria, symbolized by Avodah B'Shech HaKlippos, right? And the Kedusha of the Bria, the Zich of the Bria, which is Avodah B'Nesoyin without the Klippos. One is a symbol of what he calls Ha'ora, and the other one is a symbol of removing the Dveikus, in that kind of sense. And these two processes are now always occur in every generation, in every individual. Now the question is it the same? Has it changed? There are many questions we can ask. But these are the two fundamental pillars of the Hashkocha protest in the Bria. The whole Hashkocha runs according to these two things. Because the Moshe must see to it that both of these processes are continuously filled in one way. Now, come back to, I think, what you asked, or what was your question? Was it you? I forget. Different people. Now, let's take for example, in the time of Adam Rishon, after the Chet, the people failed, right? They failed to do certain things, right? What happens then? It goes on to the next generation. You see what I'm saying?
What happened to the Mabul?
Wait a minute. In the generation of after Adam Rishon, right? Cain and all these people and so on and so forth, they also had the same tachlis. Their tachlis, but except now it was not done by one person, it was done by two people or several people, right? Their tachlis was what? To restore the Bria. You see?
But they could have done it right there?
Yes, they could have done it.
Too big for it. It seems that the fragmentation was two at the beginning.
Yeah, whatever. They could have done it. They failed to do it. What is the immediate consequence of failing? What? Which means that a higher klipa, which means that now it's more difficult.
But it's only more difficult for Mashiach and Yosef people. Right? Mashiach and Noah just stays the same.
In a sense. It gets more from the right. It does get a sense. In a sense, you're right. Yeah, but that's already, all Neshama, but every Neshama was hit by the Yosef thing too. Because Adam was hit, so every Neshama has a Yosef tachas. But some are more pure, some get out of it faster. Every Neshama that was, since
so
Adam...
You mean to say that in each Neshama has to fight both Yosef and the Mashiach? The first time you... One second.
Everyone was from Adam. Everyone had every Neshama that was fragmented from Adam had the Zoim of the Nochash, had the Klippa, the Sheikh.
You brought two examples. One being brought up in a Rabbi Shemishbach and one being brought up on the Diamond Street. One second. Do you mean to say that they still both have Yesedika and Nisayan?
Yes, but he may have left. He may have
but Nisayan and Mr. Medish is
but he may have left Nisayan because in the previous Gilgal he may have worked through more.
What you mean it's a model?
What's more, if a person, for example, works through his, let's say a person, for example, I give an example. Let's take it pomela. Let's take it slowly and then we'll walk it down. You see how it is. And you begin to get a sense of what's going on in the Hashkocha. Let's take the generation after. Okay? Adam Rishon, Achachet, Cain, Hovel, whoever was that time. What was their tachlis? The same thing as Adam Rishon. Same tachlis. Did they make it? No. They did make it. Made the time. I'm not going to analyze each of the doors. That's not our purpose here. But let's say they didn't make it. What's the immediate consequence of what they did?
It gets worse.
It gets worse. Okay, now. It gets worse. Because there's an avugya, the bria begins to change a little bit, or not noticeably, things begin to happen in a certain way. Okay, fine. There's a bigger klipa now. So, to get back, you're further away now. Okay, you're further away. Now, let's go to the next generation. They fail to do it. Again, you're further away. Right? Now, but as you have more and more people, the neshamas fragment more and more. But now you have more and more people. Some people will be bigger Rishonim than others. For example, so if you have a certain generation, let's say at a certain point, let's say the third generation now, where one guy is a Russia, and the other guy is a Beinoni, right? His riches give him a much bigger clip on him, so, right?
The Beinonis, it had both his Beinonis, they would be pretty much okay.
But you begin to see how it begins to differentiate among people. So therefore, if they're Megulgal again, if they come back, then Russia comes back with a heavy load on him. Because he has a much bigger Yosef Tikatachnas. You see? The Beinoni comes back, you mean? With a much bigger David Tikka thing. Shtik Yosef to remove the thing that he did before, but it's not so bad. He was fought on Elach Yid at those times. So therefore, since he's already cleared away a lot of his stuff, he's now given the ability to begin to really work through Zichoch. To be kind of Uris Out of Klippas, for the pure. And what happens? The Neshama begins to store up those oris, so that when he dies, he'll be able to mazach the guf in a more powerful fashion.
It says on the first one. It says on the first one.
The Gilgul Neshama can be, for the same Neshama can come down multiple times.
Multiple times, yeah.
But you said, when we discussed this before, you said it completely the opposite.
What's that?
You said that you gave it as a reason for Jews not being religious is possibly being Gilgulim.
Well, the other fact is that no. The other fact is this. Does everyone understand what I've said till now? Basically, are there any questions?
Yeah, well, just one short remark.
No remarks, just questions.
One question.
No, because I don't want to.
One fast question.
I don't want to interrupt the twins.
You know how many doors you have to go through?
What you mean? Do you mean to say that an individual's avodah in life, when he has this time when he has avodah in an extreme level of this sign, and he's successful, so at that point in his avodah he's removing the zahama from his group,
The neshama.
And from Shem as well, yes. And possibly from the rest of the world also to a degree. And if he persists and successful, is also concurrently also making a taken on the throne and making on the and tripping the potential state of his
Right, yeah. Right. Yes.
But how do Mashiach fit in? It's up to the individual, the fragment.
So what the people,
That's
yeah.
a different question.
These are Mashiach go for a second. These are no. I want to just get to that. I want to get sense. So therefore we see as each generation fails to do it, right? It gets worse and worse and worse. So therefore we begin to understand why it is that Ikvus Mashiach looks the way it does. You see what I'm saying? Because Ikvus Mashiach, which is the end, toward the end, right, is a reflection of tremendous expansion of Tikboy Sarah. You see?
How do we live in the start?
I mean, how what's that?
That's the taken by making the small.
No, the Eitzah was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So how does it suddenly get smaller? That's the shaila.
One of the general questions, nice when you learn, we always say that those who are shining have already places and we have so much left. I mean, we really have to be like taking guts for us to say, other reason he never couldn't do it. And they couldn't do it. And we're going to do it. I mean, and so now it's our job to try to clean up everything. Right?
No, our job. How big is the hour?
A lot of, maybe fragment a lot of people, but there's a lot accumulated there.
You're right, but there's a lot of people that have to do a job. Adam was only one. So he had a big job to do.
And that's what she was.
Gets greater, but the distribution.
So you know, as time goes on,
as it becomes more and more
the load
difficult,
becomes distributed and
further and
more
further
people.
fragmented.
Yeah, but it's getting worse and worse. What's going to happen?
Right. Okay, it appears to be getting worse and worse and worse in that kind of sense, right? That's why we see the expansion. There's expansion of Tikboy Sarah, and there's more, which means that there's more Tahara that has to take place and so on. But the differences are the following. By Adam Rishon, Koydem Achet, there was supposed to be Zichor. He failed, so there has to be Tahara, and so in that kind of sense. Now, what it is, the situation is now is the following, is that as there's more and more Chatoim, it's not equally distributed anymore. Different people have different shades of Yosef Avodah, and what do you call it, Davidic Avodah. Correct? That's number one. But also, the person is now doing both Avodas at the same time. You see. By Adam Rishon, Koydem Achet, it was clearly distinguished. Adam Rishon, Koydem Achet, the whole Avodah was a Davidic Avodah. After the Chet, it became a Yosef Avodah. But as it went on, it's really, we're doing both. It's not separate anymore, you see. And we do both, it depends on the Avodah. Some people are put, even in the same person, sometimes he has an Esoyin in a heavy klippa. Sometimes his son is lighter.
Some days it's going to be easier, some days
which means that he himself varies, it depends. He himself varies, is it a Yosef Avodah or is it a Davidic Avodah? You see what I'm saying? The avodah itself varies by individual, which means that while he's being Mekayah, he's also being Mekadosh. You see what I'm saying? Two things are going on.
He's misaking for someone else, and he's working for himself.
Or he's misaking himself, and he's still working for himself.
Oh, right.
Yeah, service and Shem.
What?
That's really don't do all this.
What's that? You have to leave? Oh.
Could you come back like 2 minutes?
Now, fundamentally, when we ask the question about now there's one more process. We said that there were two processes. There's a Davidic process and there's a Yosef process, right? There was one more process which is even more fundamental in behind Yosef, which also does the job. You see, Because remember, Davidic process means on the soyin outside of the klippus. A Yosefdic process is in the soyin inside the klippus. Right? Now, what happens if the person, you see, doesn't do a good job even inside the klippus? In that kind of sense. But he does do certain mitzvahs, but he can't be only bin a soyin in the klippus. What? He forced him, but he can't handle it. He can't do it. You know what I mean? He can do a little bit of it, but he can't get rid of the tumor that's on him. He can't get rid of it. But you know, if you take him out of the klippus, he can handle it. But when you put him in, he can't handle it. Or he can handle a little bit, but he can't get rid of the thing. You know what I mean? And you've got to get rid of the thing. You see, or else you can't. So what do? There's a third option. That third option is Yisurin. Yisurin is Mamarek. It's Mamarek. Yisurin, trouble, source. That, when a person goes into source, that is Mamarek. It takes away the Avuvya.
But sometimes a person can't handle that either.
What's that?
Sometimes a person cannot handle that either.
Everyone can handle it. He's not given a choice. He's given it to him. And according to he's given.
The reason says it doesn't take the right attitude. It's not Mamarek.
No, that's not. Yisurin is always Mamarek. It's a higher madrega to take it, you know, and so on. But any Yisurin is Mamarek. You don't get in that kind of sense. In other words, there's a level. What I call it in the level with Yisurin is Mamarek the thing. So, but when a person has to come on to Yisurin to be Mamarek, you see, that means he's going to be given very few opportunities for Davidic processes. He's going to be given a certain amount to get certain earth, and the Baruch Hashem is going to have to clean up the rest of the stuff so he'll have shaykh to ilim haba.
Even master, even Shavuos, means in effect that he fell in the.
Yeah, but that's not, you cannot say a blank sentence. Everybody who gets Yisurim is.
It doesn't mechakanam l'ksufa. What it does is removes the tumor away.
Yeah, but
that's what it does. No, it doesn't give you any extra earth. What's that? The earth you get, right?
Where's you going to get it from?
Because the earth that you have to get from is when you're a person who's omed bin soyin stam. You see,
but you cannot say blank sentence that everybody has Yisurim is because
wait a minute, hold on. See, the criteria is the following: you cannot get into ilam haba without mitzvahs, without earth. You cannot. Number one, but you also cannot get into ilam haba with tumor connected to you. You see what I'm saying? So in order to get into Olam Haba, you've got to remove the earth, right?
Tumor first.
And you've got to remove the tumor. Now, what is happening is that both of these things are simultaneous in a person. Midor achador, and so on. Now, the problem is, both getting the earth and removing the tumor. Now, in order to get into Olam Haba, you must have a minimum amount of earth. You see, if a person doesn't get the minimum amount of earth, there's nothing to be mamarek. There's nothing to remove. There's no reason to remove. You know what I mean? Because he's not going anywhere. But if a person is able to get a minimum amount of earth, you see, to machalik the shama, to develop a level of zichuch, then the Baruch Hashem is concerned with being mamarek. You see what I'm saying? Then the Baruch Hashem is only concerned with mirach, removing the tumor, the dvekis, the tumor of the avuvia, if the person is going to go into Olam Haba, really. You see what I'm saying? But what the Olam Haba means, if he's a shtick mitzvah, he's a Beinani, if the guy's a Rosh Hashanah, where he has nothing, then the Baruch is not concerned with mirach. You know what I mean? Do you understand? So the Baruch is not concerned really with really Yisurin in that aspect of it. What's that?
Maybe he doesn't want the Einish to be so bad. Why are we saying that if someone does good, he gets Olam Haba, and if he does bad, then he just doesn't get anything?
It depends on the cheshbon. There's a number of different cheshbonos here. To avoid, that's the mirach, that's mamarek. If this comes because of the tumor, Yisurin is an einish. What do you mean you don't avoid einishing through tumor? Yisurin is an einish.
He's a good person, he has a lot of items, and he has a chance to get it, and get Yisurin, then he should be able to go into it.
That's what I'm saying.
The person who has no chance to go into it. The question is, how much Yisurim does he get? Does he get 10 pounds or 1,000 pounds?
You can't do cheshbon because it depends on how many items he did, because he has to be paid back. You can't cheshbon that. It depends on how. It depends on what he. It depends on what he did. What I'm fundamentally saying, basically, is that you can't even get into. In order to get into the parsha of Olam Haba, you have to have been cleansed a certain amount of oris. Once you create a certain amount of Uris, then we have to remove the other thing. And now, what the balance is, there are a lot of other cheshbonis which I don't want. The situation becomes more complex. But fundamentally, this is essentially what's going on over in that kind of sense. Therefore, what happens, midor achador, every individual is looked at in terms of how many Uris does he have now. In the Nisyanis that he's put into, which is not in the Klippa, and he's able to be served these things and so on, then he gets Uris. And what happens when he call Briota has a certain amount of tumah on him? We got to get rid of that. So he's put into Klippa Dikka Matzov, and we see there, if he can handle if he has enough Uris to get him to Elam Haba, then we want to get rid of the tumah. So we put him to Klippa Dikka Matzov to be Mataya this thing, right? To be Menaka the tumah. If he can't do it, then we have to begin to lay on Yisurim, which are Menaka the thing. Only because we know that eventually he can go into Elam Haba. You see what I'm saying? We have these various different options in terms of this kind of situation.
You develop the idea of Yisurin as a noodle that's for tire, not the Kaddish.
It's not no, it's Marek only.
The idea we're developing.
Yeah, right.
It comes in.
Now, what do we see from this? Very simply, what do we see from this? And let's go back to our question. We understand what's being said, basically. We understand the concept of what Adam failed to do. We understand the Mashiach as it emerged, or the processes that emerged, the two processes. We understand to some extent the difference in the processes. One is a Nisoyan without the Klippa, one is a Nisoyan in the Klippa. We also understand to some degree, right, how they manifest themselves in each individual, Midoach Hador, in terms of that. We have some kind of an understanding of that, okay? Now, let's take this information now and answer our question. The fundamental thing is the following. When the Banishim said, the Banishim says that I guarantee, Adam Rishon had a chance to do the Nisoyan. He failed to do the Nisoyan, correct? The Banishim said, because of my rotten, we spoke, remember about the Hanagas HaYichud, that it must be. The Banishim says, Olam Haba must be. It must be. Olam Haba must be. What does that mean, Olam Haba must be? It means that man must be Masak in the Bria. Right? What does it mean to say man must be Masak in the Bria? It means that man, in order to be Masak in the Bria, you must be at a point in time when you're completely Matara everything. You see? You don't know what I'm saying? You must be at a point in time where you remove the expansion of the Sitra Achra. There must be a stage in the Olam Hazeh when there is no expansion anymore of the Tigbor Salah. You see, just like there was by other Mishin Kredim Achet. You see, you understand what I'm saying? Why? Because you can't go into Olam Haba. Olam Haba cannot come with the Tumah there. So therefore, you must proceed Olam Haba with a situation where the Tumah is all gone. You see what I'm saying? It's all finished, where there is no more Tumah. And all that remains left is a small bit of Yetzirah which exists mitoch the Cheson, not mitoch the expansion. Which is exactly the same thing that was other missions Kred Machet. In other words, wait a minute. In other words, what we're saying is the Yemos Mashiach is nothing more than the matzav of other mission Kred Machet. You see, that's what it really is. In other words, it's nothing more than a period which is very similar to that period. When we go back to a period where there is no more expansion, there is no more Zoyam of Nochash, there's only a period of Nochash.
So what's in a song?
So
what is it?
Taken away.
And it's taken away. Only the Chasson, the original Chasson of the Nochash is there. Not the Tikburis or the Zoyam of the Nochash. That's gone. Do you see? Understand what I'm saying? Wait. I want to make this clarify this. Why is that? Because that's the thing. Because the process of Olam Haba is over here, right? It's over here, right? And that's the level of Zichoch. The level underneath is a level, right, of Tikkun almost there, right? Which is a level of Chasson without any Tumah. Then underneath there are levels of Tumah already. The other mission fell down. But in order for him to go back to Olam Haba, he's got to go back up again. Going back up again means to come to a Tekufa, when there's no more expansion anymore. And that Kufa is right before Olam Haba.
I thought that was done in the hand.
No. Do you see what I'm saying? Am I clear here?
You told us that was the purpose of those 1,000 years. The 6,000, 7,000 is just the...
That's real.
The whole that's not away the whole Tumah, the Klippa, then that's the way, and then we can come back.
Yeah. Okay. What I said before, I remember I wasn't specifically. the Chet of Adam Rishon had two effects. The first effect was there's an avuvia of the tumor, right, in the goof of the bria, right, and there was also a devekus of tumor to the neshama itself. Remember, that has to be cleansed. The tikkun of the tikkun of the zoyim of the nochash is removed from the physical part of the bria through death and through the chaos of the bria. But from the gashmi is the tikkun. But what about yeruchni is the tikkun? What about the tikkun of the neshama with the tumor around it? How is that removed? That is removed through nisyonis in a klipa or yisurin. You understand what I'm saying? Yeruchni is the zoyama. In other words, the zoyama has to be removed on all levels. It has to be removed from the substance of the bria itself, the matter, and it's removed that way through misa, through death, and it has to be removed from the neshama also, and it's done through avodah, through nisyonis. To the person being boicha in a klipa. And when a person is being boicha in a klipa, you see, when the neshama is boicha in a klipa, it removes, it tears off the section, you see, of the tomb itself. So, in other words, we're saying the following. Olam haba is over here, right? Up here. The next level of under Olam haba, which is the perfect level, is a matter of chesaron. Right? That's a matter of Adam Rishon Koydem Achet. That's a matter where there's what's called Nochash. You can't see it because there's dust there. That's a matter of Nochash. A matter of Nochash means that the Yetzer Hara lives outside of Adam and is able to seduce him to Bechira. That's simply a matter of a minimal chesor in the Bria. Adam does the Chet and goes down a matter. So there's not only is there Nochash, there's Zoyama of Nochash, which is expansion or Avuvia. That's called Zoyama. Kitil bo Zoyama. Remember we used that, Chazal say that the Nochash threw in an impurity into the Bria. That's the Avuvia. Right? Now in order for us to go back up here, you see, we can't just run like this. We have to go back up. First we have to clear away the Zoyama of the Nochash. We got to get rid of the tumor that's in the guf and the neshama. The tumor is removed from the guf through misa. But what about the tumor that's in the neshama? The ruchnistic tumor that's in the neshama. That's removed. The dvekus of the person, of the paninius of the person, Torah. That's removed, you see, through the shyness in the klipa.
If that fails, then sure.
Oh, you saw it. But that's a yosefistic process. You see what I'm saying? Once the zoyama is finished, then, you see, the bria is on the matzah of just Nochash. And then it's got to work from the matzah of Nochash to the matzah of no Nochash. Or Olam Haba. A David. You ever understand what I'm saying?
So initially it begins David and yes, it's also on Hanus HaMish, but if that fails, Hanus Yichud can be stern.
Yeah, thank you. But that's Hanus Yichud is also even Yosef Sticker is also but these I go with that. Does anyone understand what I'm saying? Now basically, in other words, so what we see very clearly is like this. It's very fun like this. Is that when the British says that even if Adam Rishon fails, I don't care. The Bria will have to come back to the Matzav of Olam Haba. What the Buddha is saying, the Bria must come back to the Matzav of Adam Rishon Koydem Achet. You see what I'm saying? Because that's a Matzav without any Zoyama. You see? And that's a Matzav where it's one mitzvah will do it. Or whatever does it, you see what I'm saying?
Why do we have to wait so long? Why? If
I don't want to deal with why I have to wait so long. Let's just deal with why that's what it is. The Mashiach is nothing more, you see, than that final period. For a certain reason, when the Bria gets to the point, you see, when the Bria gets to the point of Yemos Mashiach, every neshama in Klal Yisrael will have removed its Zoyama.
But by themselves?
By themselves.
Or by
it's getting worse and worse. We're fighting a losing battle.
It looks like that, but listen to the statement. Of course, it doesn't look like that, but that's not true. That's an appearance sake on the outside. But what will have happened is that by the time the Mashiach arrives, every piece of Zoyama will be gone. Every piece of Zoyama will be gone. How? Through continuous nisyonis and klippus, or massive yisurin that's brought on the Bria.
Oh, that's no comment about the model.
Like World War II. Massive yisurin that's brought. Look at Klal Yisrael. Has the existence of Klal Yisrael through history been a picnic? What do you think that is? When the Buddha says, I will ensure, the Hanach says, I will ensure that the Tikkun Nam takes place, that there will be Zichur. I will make sure that Zoyama goes. Well, look at the Matam Kali all through history. Look at the tremendous shibudim of all the people, and the Ritzichas, and the pogroms, and God knows what went on. What do you think that is? That's removing, that's Yosef Tikasachen.
I'll explain Mashiach when it doesn't have to die.
Forget about that.
Taking away the Zahama.
All that is a Yosef Tika process. It's removing Zoyama. That's what it's doing. So that by the time the Mashiach arrives, Chayesha will be knocking. No more Zoyama. You see? So since there's no more Zoyama, there's no more Chayshech. You see what I'm saying? Because the Chayshech and the Bria is part of the expansion. You see? So therefore, instantly, as soon as the Zoyama is gone, the whole Chayshech lifts from the whole Bria. You see what I'm saying? Then suddenly, tomorrow, Deir Hashem, Kamayim Yamachatim.
How about the Shkados? Is that still continue?
Who? We're going to get another point. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, it's the Mashiach, the Mashiach, it's not the Mashiach itself, or the Mashiach is not going to usher in a period where there's tremendous Giri Chudoi. He's not going to usher in that period. That period is an automatic consequence of the process of the Bria. That's the thing. That's what the Mashiach is. It's there already. Exactly. It's going on. That is the first question. When the Nevi'im were looking for the Mashiach and they were saying, 96% of the time has passed and Mashiach not arrived, it's not true. It's going on in every generation. Every generation there's Mashiach process going on. That's number one. What hasn't arrived is the cleansing of the Zoyama. That has not arrived yet. You see. But when the Nevi'im was saying that, Yeshaya was saying, I tell you that there will be a Mashiach. What does it mean there will be? It means there will come a time when that Zoyama will be gone. Either through Bechira or Yisurin. One way or the other, it will be gone. You see. So therefore, the Mashiach is an automatic consequence of what happened in the Mashiach. Or all the various things. It flows as a natural course. It's not a disruption, although it appears to be. You see, we'll get into that later. It seems to be a disruption only on the outer surface. But on the inner surface, on the Ruchnistika level, Chalisol is at the highest point of Kedusha. We're almost totally free of Zoyama. It's an incredible concept.
Because the accumulated effect from previous years.
All the years. So therefore the Mashiach is ushered in. That's ushered in because that is a tkufa.
Technically, we're getting further away, and then it comes to the furthest point. Then we start working our way towards
so that's
better position.
So it's going to be.
We're doing both at the same time.
Yes.
Now the shaila is, wait a minute, but if you examine the Yemos Mashiach, the Yemos Mashiach seems to be a much higher position than other Rishon Kodim Achet. Only for one reason. It is a higher position because it's a much stronger level of Giloy than the.
We went through. We had the Pigbar Sarah, and
we removed it.
We removed that, so it's stronger than.
Why?
What's going on all along? Maybe to make sure that we don't go back.
Well, hold on. Well, 1 second. Through all the generations, we've been moving the Zoyama. Suddenly, we remove all the Zoyama. Okay, so now we should be at the matzav of what the mission was Kodim Achet.
No, but we are also doing Mashiach Mashiach ben Davidic things.
We've been doing also Davidic. But the thing is that all along we've also been doing Davidic things. So in other words, by the time Mashiach comes, the world is in a much higher level than it was by other mission Kodim Achet.
Almost.
Because not only is there no Zoyama, but there's almost full power in Mezachich. Whereas Adam didn't have any power in Mezachich. Adam Mishim Kodim Achet was a massive where he had to create the power. He had none, except that he fell. We
will have less Bechira already to go through at that particular time.
So our Bechira will be so tiny, very small, because there's almost no power necessary. We don't need any more Eris. You know what I mean? We almost have not only not to full the Zerma, but we also through all the generations.
So the Gilu is so big already, and
that's why the Gilu is so big and the Eitzah is so small. It's so small. It's even smaller than it was in Oydem Rishon Kodim Achet. Why?
Because there he had a full-fledged.
Because once we removed the Nachash, the Zerma of the Nachash to the Yosef processes, we're now at the table of Nachash.
Right.
But we have to remember, we've also been doing David Dika avoidance. There have been many tzaddikim and yidden that have been only been asoyin outside of the klipa, which is that's other Rishon Kodim Achet. That's a Davidic process. So by the time the Mashiach comes along, we will accumulate all that also.
So we not only have destroyed the Zoyim of the Nachash, but we will have wiped out most of the Nachash also.
We emerged in a higher level.
That's why the Mashiach is in such a high level. Yet it still conforms to the Tikkun of Namatsufa. Why? Because it's not fully finished. We still have a couple of ounces left to go.
Well, look, you've answered another question. Why it is given an exact 6,000 years, and the period of Mashiach can be different lengths. Had it started earlier, there would have been more of the Nachash left, and this more David process, so there would have been less at the beginning of this month.
Now, Chazal, just to go on, what time is it?
11.
Just, what?
There were plenty of Deacons who were post the cliff, who were going to sign in the cliff.
Yeah, but they had to be Mashiach for the rest of the people who did not.
Now, one more thing also, just to bring a thing also. The Gemara says that by Matan Torah, Klal Yisrael reached a position where they moved the Zoyama. The 210 years in Mitzrayim was such a tremendous Kuah Milkum, was such a many Yisurin and Bechir and Klippa, that the whole Zoyama was wiped out. It says there, the Gemara says that the Zoyama was gone, which means they were mamash right at the point of Yom Mashiach. They makabel the Torah, and if they would have gone without the Egel killed it, the Egel pushed it again, like the Chet of Adam Rishon. Okay, but if they had not done it, they would have gone into Eretz Yisrael, and it would have started Yom Mashiach to finish off the last of the stuff. But since they were much closer to the beginning of the world, they went through all that Yosef process, but their David process wasn't so much. Therefore, their Nachash would have been still more powerful, in a sense. You know, the Yom Mashiach at that time, had it occurred, probably would have been less Giloy in a sense than ours.
They had more chance of falling back because the Nachash is
no, that's also not. You know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying? It would have been slightly different. In other words, the amazing thing is this, is the following thing is this. Since the Yom Mashiach, the end part, could come at different critical points, depending on when you get rid of it, then the Yom Mashiach itself changes.
It would be nice, better.
You mean? In other words, when Yeshaya was describing Yom Mashiach, or every Yom Mashiach, depending on when what happened, is a different Yom Mashiach.
The later the better, that's what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? No, I mean, in one way it's better.
Right.
In one way it's worse.
Right. Because
you got to go too much more. In a sense, the longer, it's like wine. The longer wine lasts, the better it is.
But you don't drink it well.
Right, as the Yom Mashiach makes longer, then it has a higher quality.
But
you know what it takes to get to that kind of quality?
Right. You have to
how much blood has to be spilled to get to that kind of quality? You know what I mean? But we see the very interesting thing. We see that the very concept of Mashiach is a variable. It's a flexible concept. Most people don't realize. Most people first of all think that the Mashiach is a person, which he is. But the Mashiach is not. The Mashiach is a person only says, you know what the Mashiach is, man? The Mashiach is no more than a guy. The Mashiach doesn't bring any much Mashiach. He can't. He can only function. He can only do what he does because the Tikkun of Klal Yisrael is in his hand. The Mashiach goes with the whole Tikkun of Klal Yisrael. He's right. He takes the strength of the thing and goes to the recipient. Here.
He's the recipient of the
He's the one who taps it off in the end.
A very special function.
Yes. I won't get into that. He's a Makabah Patish. He has to tap off the last thing. Yosef is the one who has to tap off the last David, and the last Yosef did the thing. He has to tap it off. We won't go into how that goes, and so on. But he's only able to do it. You see, he only has his koiches because it's all gone already. He's got most of the koiches of the Zoyim is already gone. So that's where he gets his koiches from. So therefore, he's nothing more. He is the climax of the situation. He doesn't bring it in. So the Mashiach is not an individual. It's a process, and it is not constant in its features. It changes depending on what the situation is. So what we see is an interesting movement. We see the two fundamental themes of Hashgacha, and we see how those themes continuously change, and therefore how the Mashiach itself changes as a result. And we understand what the Mashiach is. That the Mashiach is nothing more than the re-repetition of the Chet of the Adam Rishon Kodim Chet in that kind of situation. And the Emunah of the Mashiach, why is that we say Tzipisi Yeshua? Why? Because the Emunah of the Mashiach is the Emunah that the Banisham will keep his word. It's an Emunah in the Achdus of the Banisham. That's what it is. The Emunah of the Mashiach is the Emunah that the Geulah will come, that there must be Olam Haba. That's the Emunah of Mashiach. You see what I'm saying? That's why the Emunah of Mashiach is the equivalent to the Emunah in Olam Haba, which is the Tachlis of the Bria. It's the same thing. Because it says there will be a Mashiach, means that there must come a period of Kufa when Kal will remove the Zoyama, because there must come a time when the tikkun of the last part of the Zikr will take place and there will be Olam Haba. It's synonymous, and that's why it's so kosher. And with that, we've answered all the questions.